Hello, and welcome back to the world of Wysteria. Tonight, I'll be reading chapter 39. Okay. Wysteria, chapter 39. Finally, said Emily, as Will materialized on his balcony the next day. He wasn't surprised she'd arrived before him. He knew she would be anxious to begin their off-world explorations. "I'm not late," he said, giving her a quick kiss. "You're early." "I guess so," she conceded. "I'm just..." "Yes, I know. Have you been here long?" "Not really," she said. "Maybe half an hour." Will considered telling her that he wanted to wait a few more days, just to tease her. But that seemed cruel. "So, have you decided where we're going?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "It's a place Charlotte and I call the Green World. It's beautiful. Strange, but not too strange." "Do you know the builder?" Will asked. "Will we be welcome there?" "I haven't met him," said Emily. "I'm not sure if he knows." "Knows?" "About other dreamers," she said. "Really?" he asked, surprised. "You didn't know," she replied. "True," he said. "But can't he sense that you're there?" "You didn't," she countered again. "Not at first." An experienced builder would probably figure out that something was out of place. If they're home, that is. "I've been to that world a few times, and I played there for a while. But I never ran into the owner. I have a feeling he or she lives in a different time zone, maybe on the other side of the world." "Then you and I must not live too far away from each other," Will remarked. "Unless we have different sleep patterns," she said. "Most dreamers, it seems, will only dream when they first fall asleep, though I've heard that some can pop back several times throughout the night." "I live in Ohio," he said, knowing he was bending, if not breaking, one of the cardinal rules here. Emily shot him a scolding glance, but then her expression softened. She looked at the ground, seemed to waver, then pronounced softly, "Pennsylvania." "Big city?" he asked. "No, small town," she responded. "Ah, me too. It is kind of nice to..." "That's more than we should know," she broke in, snipping his sentence short. She was right, of course, and Will agreed to leave that world be. "So," he said, "we're off to the Green World, are we?" Emily's smile broadened again. "Yes," she answered. "Well then, is there anything I can do to help?" he asked. "Or should I just hang on?" "Since you haven't been there, you can't help steer us," she told him. "But you can make it easier for me, make the ride less rocky, if your vibration is at least compatible with the place." "How do I do that? Is there something I should picture?" "Not really picture," she said. "It's more about matching the mood of the world. It's a very mellow place. Peaceful, fluid, slow moving. I happened to stumble upon it after spending the day at an aquarium. You'll see what I mean." Emily then asked if he was ready. Will nodded and started to reach for her outstretched hand, but he stopped. "Give me a minute," he said, taking a long, deep breath. "I need to... There's nothing to be nervous about. It's no different than going to Jeremy's world," she pointed out to him. "Just think soothing thoughts. Otherwise, we'll be fighting each other." Will calmed himself, accepted Emily's hand, and released his hold on Wysteria. Even before his vision cleared, Will saw why Emily referred to this as the green world. He also understood why a visit to an aquarium might lead a dreamer here. They were surrounded on all sides by lush vegetation that, though rooted to the mossy ground, seemed to float in the air. Even the tallest plants, which stretched high above them, nearly blocking the sky, had no stout woody trunks to support them, but grew like untrellised vines on long willowy stems, swaying in the gentle breeze. "This is pretty amazing," he said, taking in the strange setting. "Now, here's the fun part," said Emily. "Follow me." Lifting one leg and pushing off with the other, she sailed through the air before landing softly, nearly 6 feet away. As Will started to move after her, he felt resistance against his limbs. "The air," he said, "it's thicker." The consistency seemed to be somewhere between normal air and water. Emily giggled as she watched him wave his arms back and forth through the dense atmosphere. "Weird, huh?" Then, together, they began traveling through the verdant landscape, taking long, gliding steps. It was somewhat like walking on Emily's moon. The buoyancy was similar, though here, moving required more effort. After a few minutes, Will proposed they try making themselves lighter. He was curious to see if he could alter his body in a foreign world. "I hadn't thought of that," she said. Emily stopped, closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them and leapt upward. "This is wonderful, Will," she cried, swimming effortlessly through the sluggish air. "It's like water that isn't wet." Encouraged by her success, Will quickly reduced his body's weight, by 2/3 perhaps, and launched himself toward Emily, who hovered in place as he glided toward her. Then, just as they met and joined hands, Will noticed a patch of blue in the vegetation behind her. At the same time, he heard a strange sound, a soft warbling that seemed to be growing louder. "What's that?" he asked. Emily listened. "I think it's the birds," she said. "Birds?" Suddenly, a cloud of small, vibrant blue creatures burst through the curtain of green flora. Though Emily had called them birds, they reminded Will of fish, like deep indigo betta fish with long, silky wings. Whatever their species, they were strikingly beautiful creations. They swirled around the couple, playfully brushing against their arms and legs, surrounding them with song, a soothing, bubbling coo. Then, after several revolutions, they regrouped and continued on their way. Will and Emily stared at each other, speechless. Wow, she said, recovering her voice. I've never seen them up close, just flying above me, which explained why she'd naturally considered them birds. As they resumed exploring the lush paradise, Will asked if she'd run into any other exotic fauna during her previous trips here. Yes, said Emily. There's a dragon. The fire-breathing type, he asked. No, like one of those Chinese dragons you see in parades, except without the big scary head. She described it as moving like an eel, snaking through the air, gliding on feathery fins that ran the length of its body. It was quite large, at least 20 feet long, she guessed, and stunning. Similar in color to the aquatic birds, an intense royal blue, but with veins of iridescent green. However, though they spent several hours there and saw 2 other varieties of small, brightly colored flying creatures, they didn't encounter Emily's dragon. So how was it, Emily asked, after Will had brought them back to Wysteria. That was wonderful, he said. An excellent choice. I'm glad. I thought it would be a good world to start with. A thoroughly pleasant place with some interesting features. Tomorrow, we can try something a little more bizarre, she said, with a slightly sinister grin. Oh, really? Where? He asked. The little girl's place? No, not yet, she answered. I'm thinking we might pay a visit to Simon's odd world. Who's Simon? A friend of yours? Not really a friend, she replied. I have met him, though. Once, briefly. He's a friend or acquaintance of Jeremy's. Did he take you there? Jeremy? No, she said. I went there with Charlotte. What's his world like? Will asked her. It's very interesting. She then laughed as she thought about it. It's hard to describe. According to Charlotte, Simon was, or is, a mathematician. He's brilliant, apparently, and an immortal, like Jeremy, but very eccentric. Unlike Jeremy, he remarked, chuckling. Jeremy can be quirky, but compared to Simon, Emily simply shook her head. He's nice, though, just very difficult to talk to. Jeremy told Charlotte that he was able to, how did he put it? Give physical form to things that can only be described by mathematics. He can fold space in strange ways, even create living environments, environments you can move around in that have more and less than 3 dimensions. From what I gather, he has a variety of projects, but the place I saw was like being inside an optical illusion. Have you seen the drawings by Escher, the staircases? Imagine being able to walk up and down those stairs, to physically follow them. Now, imagine that sort of thing on a much bigger scale. A whole world where going up might lead you down, where traveling in a straight line might take you in a circle. Emily warned him, though, that if they went there, and it was up to him, they should stay close together, even remain holding hands, It's easy to get lost, she said, and very quickly. One wrong step, and you might end up who knows where. Well, it certainly sounds intriguing, Will responded. But you say I'm not ready for Millie's world. Is her place really that much weirder? Emily laughed. It's a different kind of weird, she said. Simon's world, as strange and disorienting as it is, still has a logic to it. Millie's place is fickle. The reality there is erratic, random, likely to change from moment to moment. Somewhat like ordinary dreams, which are supposed to be even stranger places to visit. It's possible to travel into ordinary dreams, he asked, shocked at the idea. Yes, it is, she answered. I don't know how it's done, though, how a person can tune themselves to such an unpredictable vibration. There's some trick to it. Charlotte tried to explain it to me. Can she do it? Yes, said Emily. For a while, before I knew her, she played around with it. Interesting, he murmured. Some people consider it taboo, she said, especially if you interact with the person who's dreaming. It's sort of an invasion of privacy. People who don't realize they're dreaming can be taken advantage of. Not that Charlotte would do that, she added. She's just adventurous, curious to experience new things. I see, said Will. One of her goals is to someday explore the dreams of animals. Seriously? According to Jeremy, it's possible, she said. But to sync up with that kind of completely alien vibration, one has to be either extremely talented or simply insane. Although, I've heard it can happen when a person is very sick, like with a high fever, or under the influence of strong sedatives or psychotropic drugs. Some situation where the dreamer's mind is twisted. Charlotte is pretty talented, and a little crazy, she added, laughing. But even she can't tune to those frequencies. And that concludes part 1 of chapter 39. And we will return immediately with part 2.